Okay, my name is Stephanie Larson, and this is my second video on Chris McCandless, and I have a few more talking points that I wanted to address, and some of them are regarding the yellow spiritual gift, so we'll start with those points. In my last video, I explained how Chris has a major active chakra, in the solar plexus, and that was what was driving a lot of his interest in finding and seeking the truth and creating or charting his own map for humanity or for other human beings to follow, which is ultimately, I think, what he did, whether or not he realized he was doing it. And I do think he realized he was doing it. And so what I see him having accomplished ultimately is opening up the consciousness in our minds to understand how we can structure our own freedom and what that process of discovery might be like. And he became an example of that. And I think that one of the reasons why a lot of people are still interested in this story is because the energy of that psychic pathway that he created actually does open up your mind in a way that's very different than a lot of the things that we read and watch in today's world. And because of that opening and that transformation, even his parents have said that they were transformed by his death and his story. Because of that, it is a spiritual journey or revolution that he did start. And that's something that's never going to die. I mean, once you take your consciousness there, you'll always be able to go there. So he was showing people how to use their own ingenuity to decide where they wanted to go and what they wanted to do. And, like I was saying, ultimately, I think the path that he charted, the map that he made, was a metaphysical map to some version of your own individual evolution and being able to transcend the institutions and the constraints around you in order to be able to choose your life, in order to be able to find bliss and reach transcendence through your actions. And, again, he's an example of that. He did that. And it might be different for each one of us, but we can take the same steps, not literally the same steps. I don't think that we have to go and visit the bus, but I do think we have to visit the bus in our minds and in our hearts. And, the bus is symbolic of nirvana. It's symbolic of, the kundalini rising and the energy moving out of the top of your head. It's symbolic of ascension. It's symbolic of death to the ego and becoming one with the higher self. And we only truly become 100% one with the higher self when we die. So Chris not only died a physical death, but he did die a metaphorical and egoic death. He did transcend his humanity when he evolved past it. And I do think that's one way to see his passing, is that he was simply done with this lifetime and he had done what he came to do. And he had found the end of the path. And I'm making this video on Easter, so that's kind of, I think, influencing what I'm saying. But the point is that, and that's a good thing, the point is that we all are looking for something, and what he was looking for was non-material, and that's why he gave up all of his material possessions to go to the place that he went, essentially. So, okay, so back to the yellow spiritual gift piece. One characteristic of yellows at large is that they take a long time to do things. They take a long time to put together a bike, if that's what they're inventing or building. They take a long time to write a paper. They take a long time to research what the best dumpster to rent would be. And that's because they want to make sure that they are very accurate and they have all the information They put all the pieces together to make a whole. They've explored all the angles. They've looked at each piece. They've compared it to each of the other pieces and made sure that it worked. They've adjusted that picture so that the answer or the solution will stand the test of time. So there was probably some of this going on in Alaska, and I'm not saying that it necessarily led to his death directly in a one-to-one relationship, but yellows usually from time to time take too long to do something. And so regardless of whether they know how to do something or not, one example that I remember from one of the videos about him is that he got an F in a physics class because he didn't want to communicate information the way his teacher did. So he really believed in the integrity of that information and decided that he wanted to set it out there in a certain way, and she or he didn't accept that. That's standing your ground, and that's good. And we should all do more of that. But the point is that I'm trying to make is you can't act that way and then accept other people's crap, as you go along. And I think that he wanted to accept the least amount of crap from the least amount of people that he possibly could. So by the time he got to Alaska, he was stripped down. He'd walked away from so much already, and he forgot that he needed some information that was available to him from sources other than from himself. And I think that because he had been an ascetic for a long time, he was overconfident in terms of how easy it was going to be to catch food. But the main incident I want to focus on is the moose, because the first time I really looked at this whole panoply of stuff regarding his story, I thought, hey, you know what, if he just would have butchered the moose better, he would have made it. And I do think that possibly, and I don't mean to be gory or get really nitty gritty into this, but if he had been able to work faster on that and figure that out better, if he would have been able to use his intuition more during that particular stage of his journey, that he could have made it through. Simply because that did take him too long, and taking too long to do things is a yellow trap. There's other colors, such as the red spiritual gift. They tend to go too fast. And they'll skip over things because they want speed over efficiency. So they just want to get things done. Okay, let's get it done. It's all about getting it done. Whereas for yellows, it's all about figuring out how to do it so you can bank that information for next time. Everything becomes an experiment. Well, sometimes you don't have time to make an experiment when you have to save your starving body. So he didn't figure that out fast enough. Maybe he didn't have the right knives. I don't know. I don't know what he was using for tools with that. If he had better tools, maybe he could have done a better job. But I'm not trying to get judgmental. I'm just saying. So another aspect of his story that relates to yellow is education by others. And I mentioned this in the last video, that received knowledge from other people isn't good enough. You also have to figure it out on your own, solve the problem, go in through the back door. But the thing I didn't mention is that yellows just can understand and know intuitively a lot of times what the other person really knows and what they really think. So what they can do is they can find the truth inside the lie. And so there's a saying that yellows can find the truth in the most cunning of lies. In the most cunning of lies. And I think that's what he did when he was at college. When he was at Emory, he was going really, really deep into some of his classes, into his, maybe all of his classes, but into at least part of his coursework, and really understanding and getting what it was all about and putting the pieces together, figuring out stuff and relating to it, and then using it, applying it, creating a philosophy, creating his own philosophy for living, really building that, inventing that, reinventing himself. And I think all of that was very positive. But were there things at that school that were off-putting or difficult? Something that I think is very strange is that everyone always says, well, look at the parents, look at the home life, he was running away from that. But even though he had a really, really sad childhood in many respects, when you're in college and you're well enough adjusted to be able to sit in class and go home and do homework, and you were able to be in sports, that means, you know, you're not in crisis mode to the point where you have PTSD all the time. You can function. When you're like that, which he was like that, and you're in college, you graduate thinking more about your friends and what you want to do with your life than thinking about your parents. Your parents are like, that was over 4 years ago. You know, I'm not saying they weren't still playing a big role in his life, but to me, it doesn't all add up simply because I know what I was thinking at the end of college. I was not thinking about my parents. You know, and I'm an independent business owner. You know, I am an entrepreneurial personality. Chris is, you know, the epitome of independence. And the yellow chakra is always going to be an independent chakra as well. It tends to want to be alone for long periods of time. And that's the other thing that we need to acknowledge about yellows, is that no matter who you can have the most well-adjusted yellow on the planet, they will still want to spend more time alone than other spiritual gifts, than other master chakras. Okay, well, I think that's enough for this video. I will probably make another one because I keep thinking of more things to say. So if you want to learn more about me, you can go to my website, awakenedbystephanie.com, and I'm a spiritual counselor and healer and teacher, and I basically just am making this video because I think there's a lot that's spiritual in Chris's story, and I don't think it's been adequately addressed. I think his story has more been told by the wilderness seekers, and they're certainly spiritual in their own right, but I do this for a living, so I wanted to add my thoughts. And if you liked what I had to say, please like this video, and I'll see you next time.